Welcome everybody to the call. I am Randy Irwin. I am the national president of NEFI. Just want to say what a tremendous honor it is to represent you all every single day. We're talking about the government shutdown again today. We're going to be doing this call every Friday at this time until the government shutdown ends. Before we get into that, I want to thank all the dues-paying members of the union. It is dues-paying members that make everything we do possible. You're the lifeblood of this union. Thank you all so much. I also want to thank all of our leaders out there, all our local and council officers, stewards, and other unions. You all make it happen. We couldn't do any of the things that we do as a union without you and your hard work. Thank you so much for all you do every day. I do want to let folks know that this is not a media call. So if any reporters wanted on here, this is not a media call. And I do want to kind of warn folks that we're going to have to talk a little bit about politics today. This is a government shutdown. It's created by, the political fighting that is going on in this country. That's why we're seeing this. So we can't avoid the topic of politics. But that being said, I do want to say once again that NEFI is the most bipartisan union in America. We do work equally with Republicans, Democrats, and independents to advocate for all of our members. And we do a tremendous job of that. And so, but the key point is that people from all political backgrounds are welcome in this union. We need people with the diversity of views to make our union stronger. So let's never forget that, and let's make sure all of our members out there in the rank and file know that their union is able to get things done in bipartisan fashion. I do want to we're going to be taking questions later on in this call. So we got a few speakers, and then we're going to get to questions and answers. The call will go on for 45 minutes, and we will finish at 1:45 sharp to be respectful of your time. We have questions that came ahead of time. But if folks have questions that come to mind during the call, you can email them to Matt Dorsey at mdorsey@nefi.org. And Matt Dorsey will pop his email address into the chat there, which I see he just did. So if you got any questions, email Matt Dorsey. We can't promise we'll get to all the questions, but we'll do our very best to get to as many of them as we can. So last week, we asked folks on this call to participate in a survey to tell us how the shutdown is impacting you, your family, and all of the really important critical work that you do for the American people every day. How is that work being compromised by this shutdown? We had tremendously strong participation in that survey, and I just wanted to thank everyone. Your stories, the details that are in your stories make a huge difference. We knew ahead of time, before this shutdown even started, the kinds of things that we could expect from a government shutdown. We've been down this road before, but those specific things when you tell your individual stories, those specifics make a huge difference. They're not talking points anymore. They're not platitudes. They're real things happening to people who are suffering because of this shutdown. And I just can't thank you enough for telling those stories and for sharing them with them. We're sharing them appropriately, so we're not kind of divulging details of names and things like that. But we're saying, hey, we're kind of painting a picture. We have and we're using them in so many different ways I can't tell you. So thank you all so much for doing that. We are going to continue to have rounds of doing these surveys because as a shutdown progresses, the pain of it becomes more and more. And so, those stories, what happened in the first couple weeks is going to be different than what might be happening another week or two or three into this shutdown. So we're going to be continuing to do those surveys, continue to look out for them. And please, when you're giving us those answers, the more specific that you can be, the more useful it is to us. But thank you for all who gave us those responses. They were, very, very touching, and I appreciate having that information. Your union cares about you, and we want to, it's an important word to put food on the table. We have members who can't afford to put food on the table to feed their families. We have folks who are concerned for the health of their family members because they can't afford to buy the medications that their family members need. We have folks who are concerned that they can't afford to put the gas in the car that they need to be able to drive to and from work. Essentially making it impossible for them to do their jobs. And this is for folks who are being, forced to work without pay. Even when they're, a lowly paid person who can't afford to continue to put gas in the car when their pay has been shut off. So these are just, a few examples, and we've got countless ones. But again, thank you so much for sharing all that information. The pain being felt has not been a concern to President Trump. In fact, the president is doing, in my view, everything in his power to make this shutdown as painful as possible for federal employees. He has threatened and now acted on the threat to illegally fire or RIF federal workers due to this shutdown. And by the way, there's no nexus between this shutdown happening and him having to fire people. In fact, the law says he can't do it, but he's doing it anyway. But there's no reason at all. It is a senseless argument to say that he has to fire people because we have a government shutdown. It's ludicrous. So right after our last call last Friday on the 10th, news broke right as that call was ending. Our emails started to blow up. News broke that the Trump administration would be riffing 4,000 federal workers at numerous federal agencies. Among those are HUD, where we have a couple thousand folks, and MBDA, Minority Business Development Agency, where we have proud NEFI IAM members at these agencies, our sisters and brothers, illegally being fired by this president during this shutdown just to inflict pain on federal employees. It's despicable. I'm appalled by it. Now, our general counsel, Yvette Piacek, is going to discuss more about this, but I do want you to know that I signed paperwork today to sue the administration and get our members' job backs at those two agencies. And we are going to fight like hell to make sure that this president doesn't continue to throw federal workers under the bus and illegally fire them to put more pain on the American people. It's really just despicable, and we will stop at nothing to keep that from continuing to happen. So we are also up on Capitol Hill right now, rallying bipartisan opposition to Trump's unconstitutional actions to RIF federal workers during this shutdown. And, I just want to remind everybody that the president, he swears an oath of office to protect and uphold the Constitution. And Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution says that the president must faithfully execute the laws of this country. It is not ambiguous language. It is clear as day. And when it comes to federal employees, and them being riffed, the law is as clear as day, and the president is violating that law. So when we sue the administration over these things, we expect to win, and we expect, and we will continue to rally bipartisan opposition to the president doing these things. And I think Matt's going to talk more about that. We just got a big letter. I think there was something like 150 members of the Congress, expressing concerns and an angry letter to the White House about these illegally firings. And again, a bipartisan letter. And so that's the key here. So Trump also continues to threaten and deny federal workers back pay once the shutdown eventually ends. So, more precisely, Trump says he intends to give back pay to the federal employees that he likes and stiff federal employees that he doesn't like, despite that being an egregious violation of the law. So we are going to continue to fight this administration tooth and nail on that, I promise you. And so but again, Matt's going to talk more about that stuff. So, in the last, few weeks, we've been very public out there calling for shutdowns. And, I should be honest with you, we're getting a lot of calls, a lot of calls and emails and kind of posts on Facebook and social media and things. And, I would say it's been overwhelmingly positive. We're getting some really great feedback from folks that are saying, hey, keep up the good fight. Thanks for all you're doing for federal employees and all that. But we're also getting some nasty stuff. It's a little bit upsetting, but I guess after a little while you learn to just like put it out of your mind. But sometimes the nasty stuff and the kind of there's some substance that's part of that nasty stuff. And I just wanted to highlight something that happened on a Facebook post this weekend relating to all that's going on. And I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm trying to give you the accurate tone and substance. So there's a person who made a comment. Now I'm pretty certain this was not a NEFI IAM member. He saw one of the press releases that we had done, defending you all, and he says, "Hey, in kind of angry, mean tone. There were a few F bombs in there, but nobody gives a crap about these bureaucrats. We're better off in this country without them. The shutdown has gone on for 2 weeks and it hasn't impacted me at all. And you should get rid of all these worthless federal workers who are mooching on the American taxpayer. And you're worthless what you're doing, boy. And I could go on, but like that was the gist of it, the substance and the tone. And I did respond to him. Typically I would ignore those things, but I wanted to respond. And here's what I said. I said, respectfully, don't live in ignorance of how federal employees make your life better every day. Do you live in fear that another country is going to invade us, kill us, and rape our women and children? No. Thank you, 750,000 defense workers who keep our military ready to protect us every day. Do you think we should care for our veterans? Thank you, 460,000 VA workers. We wouldn't be making good on our promises to our vets without them. I just described 60% of the federal workforce in those two agencies alone. Are you living in daily fear of a terrorist attack? Thank you, 240,000 DHS workers. We're up to 73% of the federal workforce. Want money to pay for these things? Thank you, 100,000 IRS workers who do the thankless job of raising money to make our privileged lives in this country possible. We're up to 77% of the federal government. Let's see, what else? Are you afraid a forest fire might break out and nobody will show up to keep it from burning your neighborhood to the ground? Are you breathing clean air, drinking clean water, eating safe food, driving on safe roads? Are you planning Social Security income when you retire? I could go on, but I think I've made my point. Someone taught you to hate these so-called bureaucrats. You should think about why they've done that and what they stand to gain. You think all these workers making your life, my life, and everyone else's life better should go away because you don't think you've been affected by the government shutdown yet? Don't be so naive. You can go on hating on these folks if you want to. I'm going to keep fighting for these heroes. So that's the message that we've been delivering to members of Congress, to really educate people who kind of just don't get, who just believe this nonsensical BS about who federal employees are, where they are, and the incredible work that they provide every day. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I'm gonna move it back to Matt, who's going to continue to moderate the call. Take it away, Matt.
All right, thanks for that, Randy. I'm going to go ahead and get started with our legislative update for today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt Dorsey, and I'm NEFI's legislative director. So as was the case during our last meeting on Friday, Speaker Johnson has canceled business now indefinitely in the House of Representatives once again. Um, the House has been out of session for almost a full month, and it's only been in session now for about 20 days since the beginning of July. So we really share your frustration that our government officials haven't been doing their jobs on behalf of their constituents and the communities they represent. However, we are continuing to work with members of Congress who are in DC and want to end this shutdown. Yesterday, we had a productive face-to-face meeting with Minority Leader Jeffries and the Congressional Labor Caucus. I just posted a story on that on nephi.org. I'll pull it up real quick here just so you guys can find it. Yeah, so here's Randy and the presidents of AFGE, NTU, and IFPTE with a couple members of Congress and obviously Leader Jeffries there. So you can read that story at your leisure. I'll put the link here in the chat in a sec. So we explained just how hard this is hitting some of our folks who are living paycheck to paycheck, who can't afford to take on debt or find another job, and how it's negatively impacting their finances, their families. We told Leader Jeffries that any funding deal should reverse the rifts that we have seen since the start of this shutdown. We also requested that the funding deal restore collective bargaining for the agencies subject to President Trump's executive order stripping 1 million federal workers of their union rights. Leader Jeffries reaffirmed his support for federal workers. He promised to work with the Senate to negotiate a funding deal that includes compromises, unlike the House passed CR that they've been voting on. So since Speaker Johnson is not allowing the House to reconvene, it'll most likely be up to the Senate to negotiate a new CR or to vote on items separately that would allow the CR to pass. So unfortunately, this week, in the Senate, they kind of wasted time. They were voting on that same CR that, for the 10th time, they knew would never have a chance of passing from the get-go. So I don't know, some of you may have seen this morning, there were reports that the Senate is expected to vote next week on a proposal to pay federal employees who've been forced to work without pay during the shutdown. It might seem straightforward, but there is a chance that this bill would be used to kind of shutter certain agencies for a long period of time, or it would allow the administration to furlough employees or agencies it dislikes while paying those it does favor. So we got that bill text this morning. We're reviewing it. We're meeting with our allies from the other unions right after this call to develop a strategy. So please keep an eye out for any updates on that. If that bill passes next week, we know it wouldn't bring relief to those who aren't working or those that the administration chooses not to pay. So that's why we're pressuring the Senate to come to the table next week, negotiate in good faith, and reopen the government. So again, we are pushing for any funding deal to include protections for federal workers and to reverse those rifts that occurred during the shutdown. As Randy mentioned, we did send around a letter that was bipartisan, both in the House and Senate, to tell President Trump that he must pay workers their back pay as required by the law. So we are continuing to build that strong bipartisan support to ensure the president follows the law, at least as it applies to back pay for furloughed workers. And then lastly, again, we'd like to encourage folks to take our survey about the impacts of the shutdown. I'll send the link in the chat now. And I would like to note that we are still looking for additional members who are willing to speak with the media. So please let us know if that applies to you. That's about all I have for Capitol Hill updates. I will turn it over to Yvette for a legal update.
All right. I have to be invited to unmute.
I guess.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Yvette Piaczek, Neffy's General Counsel. It's good to see you all. I know that I get a lot of good energy from these calls, and seeing your faces and knowing that we're all here gathered really helps sort of keep eyes on the prize and keep going. I know that things are really tough right now. Really tough for all of you out in the field, whether you're, working or not. It's exhausting to not know, when this shutdown is going to end. And I wish I had good news on that front, but I don't. But I have other good news. So I hope you'll take my other good news. Like Randy said, we just filed or signed paperwork. We are going to be joining the case on the RIFs that are being executed during the shutdown, the case that AFGE and AFSME and Democracy Forward filed. We weren't on the ground level because we wanted to kind of see how it went. But we hit the jackpot with, a judge that truly understands what's going on here. And so we worked through the night last night and in the early morning hours, and we are prepared to sit down with the judge today. Within a couple of hours, we're filing a request to amend the complaint to include NEFI and a couple of other sister unions, particularly those of us who represent employees at Department of Interior, because we expect RIF notices to come out at that agency, but we are also making sure that all of our NEFI units are clearly identified, so that we can be covered in that temporary restraining order that came out on Wednesday. And for those of you that missed it, Judge Ilston completely understands that RIFs are not legal during a shutdown, and blocked the administration from implementing at all of the agencies that were listed on the order. But our concern is that even though some of the agencies that are listed on the order we have employees at, there's been some development in other case law, especially before the Supreme Court, where the agency could have the space to decide not to implement or not to apply that temporary restraining order to NEFI units in particular. They might read it where they only would have to apply it to AFGE or AFSME units because they were named plaintiffs. So this is why we're working so hard to get the amended complaint filed, and it might even be filed at this very moment. We requested last night a meeting with the judge, an emergency meeting with the judge. That's happening in a few hours. And during that meeting, we will ask her to, consider the amended complaint and expand the temporary restraining order to specifically name and include all of the NEFI units under our umbrella, every single one of them. And what that would mean would be, especially for our units who already received the RIF notices, recently just shut down RIF notices, not RIF notices that happened before the shutdown. But if you received a RIF notice since the government has been shut down, you would be covered by this TRO. And so MBDA employees, you would be covered. HUD employees, you would be covered. And that would mean that they cannot proceed with further implementation. Now, that's temporary in nature. So the next step would be Tuesday. This is moving fast. Tuesday, this judge will hear larger argument on the preliminary injunction, which is not temporary. It's still temporary in the sense that it's just a pause in place to prevent harm until the case can further go along in the process and we get to the merits. But the preliminary injunction is what we've secured in other cases that has really put everything to a screeching halt. And it's what we need from the courts to do right now to intervene to uphold the law. So that meeting is happening at 3:00 Pacific time today. We hope that the judge will move swiftly so that we don't even have to see any RIF notices come out at any agencies. We've heard rumors that they're coming. So with our prompt response, hopefully we'll have that protective block up, the protective legal block sooner rather than later. So we will keep you posted. It's always chaos when it comes to filing these lawsuits. But it's going to be more so we'll have an update today to see if we get anything from this judge in this meeting this afternoon, hopefully. there is a chance that we could not, so manage your expectations. And then the next thing we'll be looking for is Tuesday, when all of the unions again will argue for preliminary injunction. If that goes our way, then that's our more long-standing protection from rifts in connection with the shutdown. So that's my best news. But let me get into some of these other updates. But we're very excited. We're very excited to collaborate with our union partners. And the strategy is going according to plan. So we're glad to be in the mix and stand a really good chance of protecting all of our members along the way. And that's why you're part of this union. I wanted to give, in particular, I don't know if we have any MPDA members on this call right now, but I wanted to give them a particular update because I have had a couple of exchanges with NAACP, who are fabulous partners in all things dealing with federal government drama that has happened here. Privileged to work with them, and had a couple of conversations, including one just about an hour ago. And so the idea is that we might be able to play some cards in that Rhode Island case to also get additional protections. Obviously, this California case specific to RIF shutdown is our best bet to get the current RIF notices rescinded. But I will be speaking with the state's attorneys general next week. I've been put in contact with them to see if we can also do make any leverage before that court in Rhode Island as well. So it's nice to have two options before us, and I'm happy to report that those things are progressing nicely. With respect to GSA, I know that we had GSA RIF notices issued, unfortunately, before the shutdown. So people at GSA that received those notices will not be covered by the lawsuit that I was talking about moments ago, because those are not RIFs taken pursuant to the shutdown. But we do have the ability to file a grievance on that. And I was just talking to our staff earlier about that grievance. We will be filing it very soon. It's coming together nicely. It's going to include all of the violations. I know that there are a lot of different ways that GSA has already violated the regulations. So it's shaping up to be a strong grievance, and we will expedite that as soon as and get that to hearing as soon as possible. I know that some folks have also inquired about filing MSPB appeals on their GSA RIF notices. I think the advice that we gave before, if you were on these calls before, is just remember the MSPB will not receive an appeal until the RIF becomes effective. So it may yet still be premature. Well, no, now you've actually had October 6th was the effective date. So the other twist now, the more current twist is there is case law that says that if your negotiated grievance procedure covers RIFs, meaning you can grieve a RIF through the negotiated grievance procedure, the MSPB typically will not hear appeals when you have that option to go through the grievance procedure. They view it as an exclusive remedy. Now, of course, we have the issue of collective bargaining has been rescinded. So, if the agency doesn't recognize the contract, what does that mean? These are all novel issues. So I don't say that to discourage anyone from doing what they've already started to do. I just want to make sure that you're educated about what all the different wrinkles are here, because of course it's complicated. So don't be surprised if you do pursue something at MSPB, you get something back about the CBA, or if you want to wait and be included in the CBA, that would be my preference, is that if all of our members are part of our grievance. But I know that there are folks out there who want to go and hire their own private attorney and pursue the MSPB route, and that's fine. We're here to help however we can, whatever you end up choosing. Again, it's a personal choice when it comes to this one. So let me pivot to the other big ticket item that I know most of the people on this call are concerned about, and that is the big lawsuit out of California that we filed a few months back after our collective bargaining was rescinded on the basis of national security exclusions. That lawsuit, last I talked to you, it's been a couple of weeks, and sorry I missed the last couple of calls. I was out, but I've been working. But now I'm here to tell you that we filed our briefs on the issue that the court had asked us to, which is should the panel on Bonk rehear whether the preliminary injunction was properly considered. And remember, it was denied initially. So we've submitted those briefs, but we're just in a holding pattern now. The Ninth Circuit hasn't moved. They haven't given any indication of when they might move. There's no like procedure in place here, so we're just kind of waiting, and we're at their mercy. We did ask the judge to go ahead, the lower court judge, the district level judge, to go ahead and schedule the time frames so that we could move the case forward so we could get to the merits, and he denied that request. So this appeal on the preliminary injunction is really sort of holding things up until it's decided. So we'll keep you posted on that, but unfortunately it's a wait and see at this point. And then our sister unions have filed all sorts of other lawsuits in various venues. I think there might be 6 total on the national security exclusion, collective bargaining rescissions. And those have continued to work through their processes similar to ours. 3 of those cases of our sister unions will be heard in December. So I don't know if the stars will align, if we will get a decision around the same time that they do, or if ours will come first. But ultimately all roads lead to the Supreme Court, like it or not. So we could have more temporary victories, but subject to review of the Supreme Court. So here we are, using my baseball analogy again. This is maybe the 4th or 5th inning of the game. Hard to say, but that might be where we are. But we are definitely not down and out. We are very much in the mix. Another question that came into me real quick, and then I'll be done. But arbitration. So our office does have several arbitrations that we've agreed to take on where our contracts are still being honored. We've got them lined up like planes on a runway, and we are trying to get those scheduled and litigated as soon as possible. What does the shutdown mean for those? Unfortunately, it means that those arbitrations, if they are currently scheduled, might get postponed because the staff who's supposed to be either participating as witnesses or representing the agency and litigating the case, most of those folks are furloughed right now. So we've had this happen before during shutdowns where we've had to move arbitration hearings, and the arbitrators are normally pretty flexible with us to try and get it rescheduled as soon as possible. So just a warning, nothing has been rescheduled yet because we're endlessly optimistic that this thing is going to be resolved and the government will be reopened soon. But realistically, we need to be prepared too that some of our cases might be postponed a bit, and that's completely out of our hands. It's not what we want. It's just another casualty of this terrible shutdown. So that's my legal update. I'll pass it back to Matt.
Thanks, Yvette. And thank you for addressing some of the questions that I'd planned to ask here. I did receive some via email, and I don't think we covered this. And if you don't have an answer now, that's fine. But I received a question. Is there any concern that units who have filed and won their election but did not receive bus code changes before the shutdown would not be covered by the RIF case?
Great question. Our argument would be, personally, I have no concern. Our argument is we have our certification. When we went through the election process, we already determined generally who was in the unit and who was out. And so it's really truly just a paperwork exercise on the back end for the agency to process the 50s to accurately reflect your bargaining unit. Now, if you're in one of those groups that was contested, that the agency was arguing that you shouldn't be in the unit, I know we have some folks like that. We are still going to fight like hell to get you in the unit, but it's a different process. So we're going to have to file a unit clarification petition to clarify the unit with the FLRA, go through that whole process, where they would look at your daily duties that you're doing now and assess whether you're truly bargaining unit eligible or should be excluded. That's a whole nother process. Talk to your BR about it. But that I did hear discussion earlier this week that is our plan to make sure that everybody that really truly should be in the union is covered. And that might mean if you were in that group that was contested during your election, that might mean that the agency could construe that you aren't covered by the lawsuit specifically. But I think that the more likely outcome there is because of the sweeping nature of the order, they are preventing these agencies from implementing the guidance, the direction, all of it. So, it'd be interesting to see, but I think there's a good chance where the outcome might be that they don't bother to get down into the weeds quite at that level, because it would be so risky, and to what effect they would be, riffing such a small unit. Not to mention unfair labor practice charges that could possibly be connected with such an action. So all that to say, I have hope that maybe it will not be as bad, but I also am a really hopeful person, and this is just terrible time where every day I get my heart broken. So we'll see how it goes, but keep us posted if you're hearing otherwise, and just know Neffy's always got your back. I can guarantee you from our office, we're paying attention to it.
Thanks, Yvette. One other question that I received was about the White House's planned mass layoffs at the Interior Department. There was a report today that the White House was going to follow through on those plans despite the court order. Is that legal, and is there anything we're doing to stop that?
So yeah, another question for me. All right. I kind of covered this again, but I'll just reemphasize. That's why we are scrambling to try and get the judge to take action in this meeting that she granted for 3 p.m. today. Unless Interior somehow is able to manage to get these notices out before that judge can intervene, I think we'll be successful.
Thank you, Yvette. Let's see here. I got a message from someone who was given a furlough notice, and the email that they had received was on a different date than the actual notice listed as their furlough date. Which date should they be going by? Is that type of thing legal, and what should they be doing about that?
Yeah, so that's one example, but we've heard of all types of different errors, whether clerical errors or intentional errors or calculation errors, but these RIFs are not perfect, and there are definite concerns that some of it impacts, severance pay or placement rights and all that sort of thing. So if you see an error on your document, I can't tell you which one governs. That's something the agency has to say. They screwed it up. They need to clarify that for you. You can reach out to your local leadership. You can reach out to your BR for help if needed as well. But this is something I would definitely push back on the agency to clarify and get it in writing. Make sure you have a record, because that's going to be good evidence for us to show when we file grievances and other lawsuits. We want to point out all the ways that this was hastily done and things and regulations were violated and all that sort of thing. So you saving that email where you're asking HR to correct or clarify a mistake is an exhibit that we can use to show just how improper the RIF was. So please save that and make sure it gets in your union leadership hands if you're not already a union leader.
Yeah, and I will say to that end, we've had multiple questions from either representatives in Congress or committees who are looking into errors and stuff like that too. So please do let us know when you receive those so we can pass them along. I got one question via email. Can we please get a spot on the website to check on the status of all the pending lawsuits? Yes, we can definitely set that up. Obviously, there are a lot of moving parts, but we will do our best to keep that updated. As we know, these legal cases are critically important to all the work we're doing here. We have a couple more minutes here, and I'm going to turn it over to Randy because we had a new member added to our NEFI staff, and Randy would like to introduce him.
Okay. First, I just wanted to follow up on our conversation from last week. We had talked, there was a question about, are we going to find a way to pause e-dues? I just want to let you know that the guidance has gone out on that. So if folks are on e-dues and are now kind of, not getting a paycheck, rift, or having to work without pay, we're no questions asked. We're happy to pause people's dues that are on e-dues. So that guidance has gone out, and just wanted to close the loop on that. And yeah, I want to introduce Andy Vanderhule. I'm sure a lot of you know him already. He's been a prominent leader of ours for many years. He was chair of the Forest Service Council there, president of the Forest Service Council, and he's come on, and he's about a month ago now, and he's our organizing director. We're extremely happy to have him on board. All of this fight that we have, it's only dues paying membership that makes it possible. These lawsuits are not cheap. And so, like we said before, membership's the lifeblood of the union. And so now Andy's going to be playing a real prominent role in our organizing program. And I just wanted to give Andy a minute or two to introduce himself if you didn't know him. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. And I'm assuming all the Forest Service folks, thanks for the reactions. Missed you guys. Yeah, I've been on for about a month, starting to learn all the other agencies outside the Forest Service. I'm kind of the voice behind the new member email now. If you've got something working on e-dues as well. So if you have any organizing desires, or you want to do calls on how to organize, I'm more than willing to make those happen after hours or whenever you're willing. You'll see me at Whip and Singer. Be there next week. So if you're in any of the classes there, you'll see me. Super excited. And the one ask I have is I don't have all the locals memorized yet. So if you're emailing me about a certain local, don't just say I'm from local 123. Can you let me know what agency and what state so I can start learning those? Yeah, there's a whole bunch. It's complicated now, but I'm figuring it out. So Thanks, Randy, and I'm super excited to be here.
Great to have you on board, Andy.
Thanks.
All right, folks, we're out of time here. So sorry this shutdown is continuing to go on. We're doing everything we can to stop it. Can't thank you enough for all you do for the American people and for all our members out there. Your union cares about you. We love you. Thank you for all you're doing. Have a good day. See you next week.